I know this is the black spot. Take care that this is the black spot. If you want to be hidden, then this is not the place to be. Thank you for coming back. I hope you had a nice lunch. We're turning into English because our next guest did a very long way, very, very long way to come over here. And I must say, Rodrigo, that I'm so thankful for taking the glove and coming over. Rodrigo ALMEIDA is a designer. He's a self-taught designer that, for my understanding, and I'm looking at his work since quite a long time, and now I know his story behind it, he's weaving between fashion to furniture, culture, and questions of existence. It's amazing that I'm a teacher in the academy, and I teach design, and almost the first sentence that Rodrigo said, he said, I don't understand why or how should a person teach design. So he was treating me very nicely, saying, no need to learn design. And if you look at the designs, you'll understand that there's actually no need to really learn how to design, but there's a very big need to be sensitive, to be poetic, to touch the beauty of life, and to give it back to the surroundings or your environment. So welcome, Rodrigo ALMEIDA, from São Paulo, Brazil. I will try to have my L as in Brazil, but it won't work so much. So please, it's your stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to be here. I'm really surprised. My first time in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and I'm a bit surprised with the connection with the way of life in Brazil. The lifestyle is very similar, and the people are very gentle. The weather is really similar, so I feel at home, and I'm a bit surprised. Yeah. What? Brazil. And so it's fantastic to be here. So I will start with a movie. I did this movie for art fair in Brazil. They invited me to show something between art and design. For me, I'm a product designer. I like the name object designer. I feel like an object designer. I'm not industrial. I'm not interested in just make products. My soul, it's really understanding the object. This can be in unique piece, this can be in large scale or limited edition. For me, must be a good project. So, because for me, design is about culture. When I talk about Brazilian design, I talk about the best of the Brazilian hands can do. So this for me have a lot of meanings. So this is the most important thing to me. You know, create a meaning and create this kind of connection with my culture in the worldwide culture, because Brazil is a mix of everything. So talk about Brazil is always talk about Africans and Portuguese, Europeans in general, and Japanese and everybody. So we will start with the presentation. Oh, I need to click. So, the most difficult thing to do in Brazil is we have quite new culture, so we didn't have time to make object history. So, what exactly is Afro-Brazilian object? This doesn't exist. So this is the challenge. We need to take this lifestyle. I think this is very similar here. You have lifestyle, you have the way of life, you have the typical and the food, the gastronomy, but transform this in an object is a challenge. And this is the most this is the most important thing, I think, because this is about heritage, and I think this is well. So here's the same. I talk about Japanese because I'm born with a lot of Japanese, because in São Paulo we have a huge migration, and it is so funny because they become very Brazilians, and we become a little bit Japanese. So I don't know. Okay, so this is the Africa chair. The first really nice project that I did, because I work a lot, I don't stop of work, because I learn when I work, so I produce a lot. When I did the Africa chair, I saw the chair, okay, this is important to me, because it's not a traditional Africa chair. Looks like a little bit Mondrian, looks like a lot of stuff, but at the same time, I can see Brazil there. So this for me is I can see my touch, my way of think of is Brazil. This is I did this collection for Afro Museum in Brazil. And now it's in the collection of Lia Del Corte. So a lot of pieces that I did in Brazil, they travel the world and private collections, and they start to travel. This is a shoes. This is nice because this is a very traditional leather shoes in Brazil. The name is Showboy. Very traditional. Everybody is really cheap. And I mix with a Chinese copy sneaker. So I like when I find a way to make a fusion. I don't like the word mix, because I'm not a mix of people. I'm a fusion of people. For me, this is meaning a lot for me. This is the gorilla lamp. When the same way, I like the contemporary. I like saw the streets, see the streets, and all the new things happen. And the hip hop, the funk in Brazil is really strong. It's that kind of hip hop. So I try to transform this kind of information in object. Sometimes the object is much more much more like a sculpture, much more like art. But this is not important because it's a language research. I believe you need to make research, and then you can codify this research in product if it's this is the Kawakubo. I'm very attached of the fashion industry because I start working with the fashion industry. Because this industry became very big in Brazil in the 90s. And a lot of friends work with fashion, well. But I discovered I don't like exactly the fashion. I like clothes. And so I start to research the Japanese designers like Reiko Akubo, Yoji Yamamoto, and I feel much more closer than Japanese fashion designers than Japanese furniture designers, because the Japanese fashion designers they work more close for the popular culture. They are much more loud, much more political, because they talk about a lot of they talk about the streets of Japan. So this, for me, it's more, I feel more connected. And this is in the collection of KNAP, which is the National Center of Fine Arts in Paris. It looks like a kimono. This is barraco. Barraco, it means like the poor constructions, but not poor in the bad way. It's, well, can be the bad way, you know. But this is complicated because you can just the poverty has one kind of poetry. So they promote one kind of culture. So you can just, because it's said in this certain way, you can just, you know, forget about it. You need to understand it. It's a poor culture in general. So it's a culture. The culture is made for the population. If the population is poor, the culture will be similar, you know. So this is a trick, because it's not about promote this way of life, like the favela shares the campanas, but it's not about promote this, but celebrate the best things that people can do. This is standard chair, this is stainless steel. It is interesting because it's a huge metallurgic factory. They work with stainless steel in Brazil. And they have a lot of this material they just put on the trash, and they come to reuse this. And we did this collection, and they create a company called Meiji, and now it's in production in Brazil. It's a very durable, interesting material. This is the same, the motor. Well, I work with like instinctive way, but have one side more of reserve. I learn a lot with the fashion industry, the way of the fashion designers work. I think it's very interesting to me, because they make the catwalk and then they make the whole collection for everybody. I think design can be the same way. You can make create a language to communicate with everybody, and then create projects more easy to people buy and everything. And because this, I start this process of investigate, because I never really like the mid-century style. The Scandinavian way of make is fantastic, but become a little bit a cliché in the designing industry. And so I had some difficulty to do with this aesthetic. So I start to investigate why. So I create a kind of timeline to discover the influences of the mid-century furniture, Scandinavian furniture. And I find the Russian constructivism, and I feel totally attached, like Malevich, and I feel connected. And then I start to make projects very close to the modernism in a different way. This sphere, this is a marble. All these projects. Looks like a little bit Malevich. And again, this is not just about mix. I think the most difficult thing to do is creative fusion. It's like, I don't like when people say, or like here, we are a mix of people. We are not. We are other people. And this is good. This is nice. This is not an arrogance. This is this way. And I think this is a very good example, because this can be, it's like weave, like basket weave. You can find this in all cultures in the world. And I did this one with hope. So if a Japanese design do this, but this can be Japanese or Scandinavian or Brazilian or from here. So at the same time, when I put this inside my work, it's different. This become more Brazilian. This is interesting because you can play this kind of codes, because are like codes. And the design culture in Brazil. I think it's similar in everywhere, but I know better Brazil, so. Maybe here is a similar, because you have a pre-craft. Because we are very new, so we didn't have all the time for do all the steps. So the important thing is understand the symbols and the codes, and know how you can manipulate these symbols with the codes of the culture, and then create new things. I don't really like the word new. I don't know. I think we need to create good things. If new or not, I don't know. If it's good, if you make something for your people or is enough. I don't really attach with the future. I prefer the present. This is a work I did. Sometimes I work with artists, local artists, in very remote places in Brazil, very like middle age sometimes. And this work I did with Zé Crente. Zé Crente is a fantastic person. He's a fisherman. And sometimes he just makes some sculptures and he put in the garden. That's it. He just like do some stuff interesting. It's not about sell, it's not about market. It's just expression. And I think the real work must be this way. It's not about selfish, it's about the expression. So we did together some work. So sometimes I make some travels in Brazil just to research new ways of, to discover new languages, new people, and the current scenario in Brazil. I'm generation between Campana Brothers and the new generation now. It's interesting because my generation is always is much more attached to industry. People think I need work for industry. I really sell my projects or things like that. Okay, this is possible. But now the new generation is much more independent, is much more entrepreneurship, is much more, they start to really think like a brand. And I think this is not just in Brazil. Because I don't know here, but in Brazil, the design companies are they're not factories. So they always stay between the factory and the designers. And now, this is reality in Brazil, the factories start to be more close to the designers and work together. So this is my case. I work with 3 factories. We have some contracts, but I don't work for them. We work together. And we start to create a brand. This is interesting because, again, it's very similar to the fashion industry. And a guy in Brazil start to invest in different designers, like LVMH, so like a holding. So they start to invest in the designer, create a brand in different designers. This is quite new, and I think this will change a lot the market. This is a new project for our brand, for my brand. We create a campaign, like a fashion campaign, and I divide my name into 2 different brands. I have the studio Rodrigo Almeida and the Rodrigo Almeida brand. In the studio, I can play more. It's like a laboratory. And in the brand and the label, it's like it's more not exactly more easy. But I take this more the complexity of the Studio Rodrigo Almeida and transform this in something more possible to be sell. Well, first, in the beginning for me, this sounds a little bit strange. But now I'm really interested in the sell stuff because you need to think in a client. So this sounds easy, but it's very complicated because you need find one way to open his mind. You know, you can't just give the same thing, but you can't give your best. So you must create something between. You must create something. You create a way of touching, and this is a psychological process. This is very interesting, and works. And when I start think about this, I stop thinking about just sell. I start thinking and understand the people. So I feel this become more fun. This is a new chair. Another one. You have big spaces, especially in São Paulo, so people like big, everything must be big. It's a new chair. It's another one. Some projects, like this project, when I did it, I think, no, but I will sell, I don't know, 10 pieces. And it's a bestseller now. So I never understand, really. Because, yeah, it's weird. But I'm happy, so. So that's it. This is my work. And in a different ways, and I repeat, I think for me, design is like culture. So you need to understand the code and play with the code. These codes can be a futuristic code, can be, I prefer work with the real stuff. I prefer work with the reality. I prefer work with the present. I really need, when I saw an object in the house, of a client house, when I feel the object for me need to be resistant, you know, resistant not just in the formal way of the construction of the object. I think a good project for me needs something suspended on time, you know. If a project become too much connected, if one time precisely, this form, I don't know, for me, it's not a good project. A good project for me, it's very hard to do this, need be suspended. You can precisely, if it's 50s, if it's 60s, if it's futuristic. Futuristic, for me, it's like, I don't know what is this. But I think this kind of intangible things that you need to put everything together and think in the psychological way. All this is my way of think design. It's it's like cooking. It's like make things for people. This is the way I believe and I work. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodrigo. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
And